We are loved beyond measure. At some point, you just have to trust her. She loves you more than you will ever know. She wants us to love one another.
Good morning. Welcome to another episode of Priestess at the Altar. Happy Sunday morning to you. So I have the purple on this morning. It's the reverse side. And since I'm high enough on the camera, you can't see that. It doesn't matter. I'm not even going to tell you what's on the reverse. It's only the purple is showing. It's fine. But this is what's on the other side of the green and gold with the dove that I got, because the dove represents Ishtar and Inanna, depending upon which area of history and geography you're in. So again, welcome and happy Sunday morning. Thanks for joining me today. And we're going to begin with our usual 3-breath little centering exercise so we can all get comfortable and present. And I'm going to take 3 deep breaths with you. Here we go. In through the nose and out through the mouth. Close your eyes if you want to. Ready? And again. And let's do that one more time. Now that we are all centered, we can spend just a little time, because it is our love and our passion and our faith that brings us here, where we can spend just a little time to commune, to be still, to feel the life force of human connection, which also connects us to her. Imagine for a moment a silver thread that connects everyone watching this video now, or later today, or another day, at different times, all over the world. For we have been drawn together in the light and the peace and the love of the goddess. And together, we all say, Amen Dea. Thank you. So today's message comes from an unknown source. It's like the story about the boy that I did early on in an early episode about the boy who wanted to talk to his little baby sister that got brought home from the hospital and said, help me, I'm trying I'm starting to forget God. And some of these parables or stories with a moral lesson have been around so long, and there's so many different versions and different cultures. Tracking down a source is impossible. They're all just listed as anonymous. So especially for someone like me, a librarian and a writer and a researcher, I love my source material. But what are you going to do? So the nice thing about these is that I can adapt them, right, at will. So this parable initially was about two men, so I've changed that to be two women. And of course, I'm going to fold it into being about more than the moral lesson, but put it in the context of the goddess and spirituality, since that's what these Sunday morning talks are all about. So there are two women, both seriously and fatally ill, and they're occupying the same room in a hospice facility. And before you dredge up some depressing imagery about hospice, let's assume that both women were financially responsible or financially successful in their lifetimes. And so the hospice facility is a nice hospice facility, not some state-run nursing home. So, okay. So one woman's bed is on the side near the door to the hallway, and the other woman's bed is near the only window in the room. And the one woman is bedridden and cannot get out of bed. The other woman is also bedridden, but she can kind of prop herself up a little bit. They kind of both can. But so the one woman can sit up and look out the window. So they talk for hours every day, and they talk about their lives and their families and their homes, their jobs, their accolades, their accomplishments, their legacies, adventures they had, vacations they took, the girlfriends they had, their friends, their closest friends they had their whole lives, other women that they've met along the way who had already passed on. And every afternoon, the woman by the window would pass the time describing all the things that she saw outside the window to her roommate. So the woman in the other bed would live for these 1 hour periods where all the activity and color of the outside world would broaden and enliven her world. The window overlooked a park with a lovely lake, the other woman had told her. And there were ducks and swans that frolicked in the water, while children sailed their handcrafted boats, and lovers walked arm in arm amid flowers of every color of the rainbow. There were magnificent old oak trees that graced the landscape, and a magnificent view of the city skyline, where when she was describing these things to her roommate in the afternoon, she could see the glistening off of the office buildings in the city as the sun was starting to set. And as the woman by the window described all these things in exquisite detail for her new friend, the woman on the other side of the room would close her eyes and imagine these scenes. One warm afternoon, the woman by the window described a parade that was passing by. And although the other woman couldn't hear the band, she could see it in her mind's eye as the woman by the window portrayed it in such descriptive detail. She could hear the marching band and the brass instruments and the marchers marching in step, and could picture the band leader with the, I don't know what they call that, the hat with the feathers on the top. And while she was imagining this scene with the parade, this unexpected thought entered her head. She thought, why should she get all the pleasure of seeing this while I have nothing? It doesn't seem fair. As the thought fermented, the woman first felt ashamed of herself. But as the days passed and she listened to the woman describe more scenes that she was missing, that she could not see for herself, her envy eroded into resentment and made her bitter. She began to brood and found herself unable to sleep. The recurring thought, I should be by that window, haunted her, consumed her. And now, rather than listening to the other woman tell her all about the wonderful things out there beyond the window, she seethed with hatred in her heart, and anger, and jealousy. Why should she be the one so sick on the other side of the room? She was actually quite younger than her roommate. It was that woman who should be in this bed, not her. And so it went. Until one night, late, as she lay awake in bed, comforted by her resentment, staring at the ceiling, the woman by the window started to cough. And then she started choking on the fluid in her lungs. And the other woman watched in the dimly lit room as the struggling woman by the window groped for the button and called for help. And as she listened from across the room, she didn't move. She didn't push her own button, which would have brought the nurses running into the room to rescue her roommate. In less than 5 minutes, the coughing and the choking stopped, along with the sound of the other woman's breathing. And then there was only silence. And then the other woman fell into a peaceful sleep. And in the morning, When the nurses came in to check on their patients, they discovered the woman lifeless and cold, called the orderlies, removed the body, to take the body away, without any words, without any fuss. And after a while that she felt it was appropriate, the woman asked if she could be moved into the bed by the window. So the nurse was happy to make the switch. She moved her into the bed by the window, and after she was sure she was comfortable, she left. So slowly and painfully, the woman propped herself up on one elbow to take her first look. And she savored that moment, anticipating the joy of seeing it all herself. She slowly strained to turn and look out of the window beside the bed. And when she did, she saw a blank concrete wall. I know, not a happy ending, and it really does sort of smack you in the face, doesn't it? So the website I found it on said the moral of the story was that happiness is a choice. I think there's quite a lot more there than happiness is a choice. I mean, certainly I can see how they got that out of there, right? For the woman, that the pursuit of happiness is a choice, that the woman who was seeing the images chose to see what she was seeing every day, chose to spend her last days knowing that she was going to die, to see beauty in the world and to not complain, to accept death with grace. All of that. And perhaps that woman knew what you and I know, or at least what I know, what I believe, what I hope that you know and believe, or I share the message of with you that I have in other Priestess at the Altar talks, that we are eternal. That this is just one of many lives, that the physical body dies, but we are unending in our journey with this goddess. She is unending, and if we are at one with her, then so are we. So I think that the woman at the window knew that, and that's why she was able to handle death with such grace. Yeah, the woman at the window had a relationship with the goddess. For how else could she accept death so gracefully and peacefully? I mean, of course, in the final moments, right, she grasped for the button because that is our humanness, right? We cling to life. That is the nature of being a human. We value life. We value physical life, and we fear physical death. But our essential selves do not. That's just the physical, material part of us. The part of us I would argue the larger part of us that lives in the spiritual realm is not bothered by that in the slightest. Our spiritual selves are like, vessel is dying. Oh, well, we'll get another one. You know what I mean? It's like, that's how I try and think of my own body, which, I have an illness, so my body often does not do all the things that I would like it to do. So I often am in conflict with my own body, but I have to remember that it is just a vessel. And for whatever reason, my soul decided to have this particular struggle in this particular lifetime. I really wish I knew what that was, why I chose this particular thing, but that is the nature of the journey. I'm not allowed to know. I'm always, when I talk about and that in my belief system, there's an in-between place, right, between the last life and this one, where, we kind of review the last life, and then we make decisions about the life that we're going to be born into. And that's where we choose are the things that we want to learn and the experiences that we want to have. And that comes with the adversity and the challenges that we will have. So, and that's what happens in between, one of the many things that happens in the in-between place. So I often say, I must have had the body of an athlete in my last life. So I made some sort of sacred vow in the in-between place. And I said, I want to experience the exact opposite of that which I just had, because I have had my fair share of troubles with the vessel in this life. Now, having said that, knowing it's just a vessel doesn't mean I'm just like, fuck it. You know what I mean? Like, I still have to take care of it because it has to serve me in this lifetime. Anyway, I'm kind of digressing and getting off the track here, but my point is that the woman by the window understood that it was just the vessel, and that her life, that her soul's life with the goddess is eternal, and that when her physical vessel died, she would just return to her, that she would just return home for a little while before she knew where she was going to go next, right? And that's, and go to the place that is beyond our human understanding. But on a human level, she had acceptance of that. So I'm kind of taking this, this parable that has a moral lesson and deconstructing it in a way that we can understand through a spiritual lens, through a goddess honoring, goddess worshiping lens. So I made some notes about what the website had said about the pursuit of happiness. It doesn't get delivered to our doorstep each morning. That's true. And I have spoken about before this perception and how important perception is, and that is part of living life in the joy of knowing my goddess, that a change in perception is a miracle, right? That if I am living my life from a perspective of I am a child of the goddess, and I am on a journey that is of her and for her and with her, my potential for joy is increased ad infinitum. And also to remember that the difference between happiness and joy is that happiness is a fleeting feeling, and joy contains the spectrum of all human emotion, not just happy. Happy is just a feeling. Joy is an experience. The other thing is that the woman at the window obviously has a very vivid imagination. And a vivid imagination is a gift from the goddess. Because think about how much imagination aids us in our joy. When we can imagine the things that we would like in our experience, that we know will bring us joy, or when we can imagine with great detail what something was like in our experience before, right? Like all those things that she sees outside the window, or the movies that she plays for herself on the wall, are probably largely experiences that are drawn from her own memory. So, where she takes little pieces of memories and embellishes them into these little movies. You know what I mean? Like, we don't know the creative process of the woman by the window. But to be able to do what she's doing and to think that way is definitely a gift from the goddess. And I would go out on a limb and assume that the woman at the window, because we've already established that she knows goddess and that she has a conscious, a cognizant connection with the goddess, that she's aware of how much the goddess is in the details of the experience that she's having, that is making her facing of death that much more, I don't want to say easy, but palatable, I guess. Palatable is a good word. And finally, the woman at the window is doing an incredible kindness for the woman not at the window. Because the woman at the window must know how much the woman confined to the bed on the other side of the room is getting from her lavish descriptions of what's happening outside. That she is feeding her soul, right? That she is easing her suffering, that she is making the path of that woman's facing of her mortality a little gentler, right? What a kindness. Because she could be sitting there and, creating this joy for herself in her own passing and not saying anything about it. She could be having all those experiences silently, but she's not. She's sharing them with this other woman. That is an incredible kindness. So again, more evidence that the woman at the window is connected up and in the flow and in alignment with the goddess. So I think in this story, we definitely have, the hero, if you will, is the woman at the window. So, okay. So now let's talk about the other woman. Don't know much about her other than I don't know where she starts off in the story. But clearly by the end, completely out of alignment, not in tune with the goddess, not praying and meditating, which I assume the woman by the window is doing in between her, storytelling and resting and whatever, because the other woman becomes prey to misery and depression and bitter resentment and envy. And here's the really sad thing about the other woman, about the bedridden woman, because, well, they were both bedridden, I think, but the really sad thing is that now that woman is going to have to live with what she's done and with the regret of what she's done until she dies. So it's a really sad story. I mean, I know that it's a parable or whatever, a moral fable that we're supposed to learn something from, but man, what about the other woman? And can we find compassion for her? I mean, of course we can, because we are spiritual people of the goddess, and we know how to have compassion because we've all been there, right? We have fallen prey to depression and anger and misery and resentment and why is this happening to me? And life is unfair and I'm a victim. And we have both been both women, right? And isn't that the point? Isn't that why you come here on Sunday morning? It's why I come. I mean, I come to hopefully share a message of hope with you, only because, not because I'm some spiritual guru, only because, I have a platform and I've been doing this for a while. So I feel like I have a little bit that I can teach. But because I do it in an open forum and you guys can contact me and comment and all of that, it's more of a group effort than anything, because you know that I'm willing to learn from you as much as I'm willing to teach. So, and if I haven't made that clear by then, let me just say that again. I am willing to learn still. I am still teachable. So whenever I say something at Sunday morning priestess at the altar that you take issue with, or that you want to debate, or that you have a philosophical discussion that you want to have about, please leave comments, send me an email at thegirlfriendgod@gmail.com, find me on Instagram or TikTok or Facebook and strike up a conversation with me. I will answer you. Maybe not like instantaneously, but I will answer you. As long as you're not, abusive or super rude, I will I will engage in spirited debate. Anyway, having said that, so yeah, man, I feel sorry for the woman in the bed. I feel sorry for the woman in the bed because she was going with it for a while, right? She was enjoying herself. She was enjoying listening to the woman and imagining, just as, little did she know the woman by the window was imagining the whole thing anyway. And I'm sure that when she saw that the wall was, that it was just a blank concrete wall, that she realized that the woman was doing her kindness as well by sharing her imaginative landscapes with her, that in a way she was trying to share hope that maybe death was not the end, that maybe there was a world unseen, right? I mean, that's the what is the word I'm looking for? That's the metaphor, right? The wall check that out. I just thought of that now. The wall is death. They don't know what's going to happen. The woman by the window, she didn't know. Maybe it's a fucking parade. Maybe it's a parade. Maybe it's a lake with ducks and swans and kids, making model boats. Man, maybe it's a parade. That's what I want you to take with you today. Maybe it's a parade. Yeah, I really feel sorry for the other woman. And I guess my hope for her is that in the time that she has left, because she did say that she was much younger than the woman that passed away first. I mean, we don't know what was wrong with either one of them or what disease or what, maybe one of them was in a car accident. You know what I mean? We don't know what they were dying from. The first one had fluid in her lungs, so maybe that was cancer. Maybe it was something else. We don't know. I guess it doesn't really matter, right? I want to know the details. Like, what were they dying from? Give me the details so that I can imagine more based on that information. But I guess we just we make it up, right? There were so many lessons to be learned rather than just the pursuit of happiness is a choice. You know what I mean? Like, you could use that story for so many different lessons like we did here today. And I guess I'm not sure what happened to the woman. You know what I mean? What happened between I'm going to go with the woman at the window on these journeys and imagine myself seeing what she's seeing. Like what crept in there? Fear. Fear is usually the, chief activator of our shortcomings or less than desirable behavior or patterns of thought, right? If I'm engaging in my shortcomings, like if I'm being very judgmental of people, or I'm treating people with anything less than respect or kindness, it means there's something going on with me. And usually what's going on with me has to do with some underlying fear about something, either the fear that I'm not measuring up somehow, that I'm not good enough in some way, that you know what I mean? Because if I'm acting from a place of fear, I'm usually not treating myself very well. And if I'm not treating myself very well, then I'm not treating you very well either. So whatever was happening with the other woman in the bed, she had started telling herself some story about herself, probably about her life, right? Maybe she had regrets. Maybe there were things that she wished she had done that she didn't do. Maybe she had, maybe there were conflicts with her children or her friends or other family members that she didn't have the opportunity to resolve. You know what I mean? There were things left undone or things left unsaid, or that she knew she wasn't going to have the opportunity. You know what I mean? Something happened, some thought crept in there, or somebody came to see her, or, you know what I mean? Something happened with the woman in the bed that flipped a switch and started the storytelling machine. You know what I'm talking about, the storytelling machine, the stories that we tell ourselves, and it changes our perception. And the first perception it changes is your perception of yourself. And once that perception changes, so does your perception about everything else. And from there, things start to fall apart. And then it's like a domino effect. So that must have been what happened to the woman in the bed. And then, the next thing you know, she's wishing her roommate dead. And then she lets her roommate fucking die. And then she's filled with regret because she realizes what what she's done. It's a horrible story. I'm so sorry I brought that to you Sunday morning. So let's end on a high note, right? Redemption is possible for the woman in the bed because she's still alive and she has time. She has time to commune with her goddess and know that she is loved and know that, what do we say here? She does not need to ask for forgiveness because the goddess does not judge her. The only person judging her now is her. Maybe us, but I'm just kidding. The only person judging her is her. So she can forgive herself for what she's done. It's all good. It's all good. And at the end of the day, she is loved. She's never been not loved. She is enough. She's never been not enough. And if she can wade through the story and start a new story, hopefully she can be okay before she dies and returns home and starts the next chapter. And, maybe in the in-between place, she runs into the woman at the window and says, I'm really sorry. And, and they make up and maybe they're friends in the next life. Let's go with that. Let's end on that note. So there's a couple takeaways from today. One is, what if when we die, it's a fucking parade? Could be a parade. What if when we die, it's a parade? There's always time, and there's always time to turn it around. There's always time to turn it around. There's always time to turn it around. That's my message for today. Because, the woman at the window could have had fear creep in, and then she could have fallen into the same despair and misery and depression that the other woman did, and then turned it back around and gone back to the window and back to the wall. You know what I mean? It doesn't matter how many times we pick ourselves up. All that matters is that we pick ourselves up. That's what I want to leave you with today. And with hope for the other woman, that she still had time, that we all still have time, that there is always time. There's always time to do it again. And then we're back to that whole, you can't get it wrong and you'll never get it done, right? That the goddess loves you. The goddess loves you. And you can't get it wrong. You have to just keep believing that she loves you and your only job is to show up and love you too. And believe that you are worth this spiritual journey, which I promise you is the greatest thing you will ever do. And from it, all other great things will follow. Because when you are full of your spiritual life, that is what changes your perception about everything else. So that's what I'm sending you away with when you sign off of YouTube today. When you are full with your spiritual life, that changes your perception about everything else. The woman at the window had a full spiritual life, and it changed her perception about everything else. That's the message. Sometimes I don't know what the message is when I come to you guys in the morning until we're done. And sometimes I have a few misfires because there were a couple times in the last 10 minutes that I was like, well, that's the message for today. No, that's the message for today. No, this is the message for today. When you are full of when your spiritual life is, when you are fulfilled with your spiritual life, it changes your perception about everything else. That's the message I want you to take with you today. And that maybe when we die, it's a fucking parade. So, thank you again for being with me this Sunday morning. I'm just going to reiterate, contact me. I will talk to you. So enjoy the rest of your day. Have a fabulous week. I will see you next Sunday. And until then, may the peace and the love of the goddess be with you.